Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video.
When another white boy or a white girl dies at the hand of an immigrant, we might shake our head, we might let out a sigh, we might even get angry for a minute or two, and then we go on with our lives. We offer the family thoughts and prayers, but nothing ever changes. Ladies and gentlemen, what does that say about us? This is a response of a society that has already given up, a society that has already accepted its defeat. But is this true? Have we given up? Do we really accept the new reality that our globalist leaders have in mind for us? I know one thing for sure, and that is that if nothing changes, if we don't start to seriously fight for our continent, for our religion, for our people, our countries, then this time that we live in will go down in history as the time in which Western nations no longer had to get invaded by hostile armies in order to be conquered. This time will then go down in history as the period in which the invader was actively invited in by a corrupt elite. And not only did this corrupt elite invite the enemy in.
Let's talk about this. And this is not just happening in America. This is a collaborated effort. That's why I wanted you to hear this. A collaborated effort that's been going on for a number of years now, at least the last 12 years or better, about 20 years has been going on. A collaborative effort. If you actually go back even further, if you would like to, with the Asian countries coming in, then you had the Islamics coming in and so forth in America. Now you have this southern border, but nobody's talking about the northern border of America either, which has pretty much an equal problem. And Canada makes it easy for people to get into it. Why do people go to Ecuador and then come up through the Bering Gap, the Bering Strait? Is that Ecuador is also a country that's easy to get into. It does not require a lot of visa. Canada is always extending out to foreign countries to come here, go to work and so forth. And they try to be that melting pot. Now you're having the great replacement in Canada as well now. And you're seeing that's the whole ideology, inviting in socialist leaning, left leaning, Marxist leaning cultures helps them achieve that agenda. What's Satan's plan? Remember, this is the same war we fought in the war in heaven. This is no different. And this is the last stand that Satan's going to be able to take. So he's going to take it good. He's going to take it strong. This is the time when truth will be considered lies and wrong, and where the wrong and the lies will be considered truth. And we're seeing it now. Now, one could say, well, look at this white girl, this European white girl. She's obviously going to stand up and defend whites because she's white and she now doesn't have that privilege, if you will, of having that opportunity to have the advantage of those certain characteristics that came along with her culture. Now, I'm not just saying because people are white doesn't make them have this superiority. I know a lot of white people that definitely are not superior. But keep in mind something. This is all about racial division. And this is not the first time we've seen this play out on the world stage. We can go all the way back to Russian communism, Russian Marxism. We can go back to Italy's Marxism. We can go back to Germany's Marxism. We can go back, follow even with Mao and Xi Jinping, continuing with China's takeover, how they destroyed their statues, rewrote their history, and blamed and divided cultures. And they have these gulags, if you will, still today with in the millions of prisoners that are there making these products that people are buying on Temu and other apps that the Chinese government, the CCP, is offering. It kills me to think you buy this cheap junk and it's made by some poor religious slave or slave to the city state of the Communist Party of China. And this is a sad day when we are just looking the other way. Why are we looking the other way? Because, well, it looks like that's what we're being told to do. Boy, I don't know if Christ would just stood and let this gone by without saying, hey, this is wrong. He definitely was very stern on the right and the wrong. And remember, they ended up taking his life because he stood for what was right. It was the local government that he stood against. Now, he didn't seek them out, but they sought him out. He stood up against that. He stood up against their policies, what they did, their practices. And that was the local leadership. Now, what you had ruling over them and governing them was larger, and that wasn't his time to deal with that. We often forget that Christ is going to return, and in return, he's returning with a vengeance, a loving vengeance, a godlike vengeance, one that we probably don't comprehend or understand. But there's two sides to him, right? There's the law of mercy, which he came down to bring about and allow us to be able to tap into. Then there's the law of justice that he cannot ignore. Alma 42, Alma explains to his younger son, that this is something that many confuse. Even he was confused in this. But if you don't apply the law of justice, let justice have its day, then even God would cease to be God. Now, God won't do that. He will choose the right, but law of mercy is very tempting. And I think that's where Satan thinks he can bring us down and he can invade us and destroy our freedom. Now, you can say, well, the church already restored. Why do we have to have freedom? Because that church can be replaced very quickly. And let me just tell you something that took place this last week. And, Matt Gaetz, Congressman Matt Gaetz came out and made the point. Now, it's not the direct attack right now, but I firmly believe, and I don't have anything empirical in front of me to say, well, that's exactly what this is, but we can put two and two together here, and we're not going to 5. We're going to stay with the 4 that it always is and always will be. Put two and two together here where this is leading, right? Remember that Christianity is on the chopping block for Marxism in private property. You're seeing the private property invasion. You're seeing that being not protected. You're seeing trust being pierced by judges and without even proper trials or proper laws. You're seeing the abuse of the Department of Justice, the abuse of the justice system take place throughout this country, no different than the Banana Republic that we've always mocked and laughed at for all these years. Recently, a bill was passed, an anti-Semitism bill to combat these pro-Palestinian, pro-Islam terrorist activists. I'm sorry. Freudian slip there. I digress. Now, this new bill that was passed actually does not allow and will not allow, and it could be used against, you cannot talk about the Jewish people bad about them, right? And we shouldn't be able to talk bad about anybody, but stating facts are one thing. And you should be able to have open discussions, just not attacks that are just mean. And even if somebody wants to be mean, I guess in a free country, they have a right to be mean, but they should suffer the consequences for it. And right now, the bullies and the meanies are the ones being protected. And everybody's saying, you can't do that. You can't be a bully and meanie. And it's used as a political weapon to pretty much silence people that are more conservative, more Christ-like, and more right-leaning, if you will, because of that nature. And that's what it's about. It's being, bastardized and abused how they want to. The new law, technically speaking, the Bible history would need to be rewritten that could not then talk about who killed Christ, what people. I'm not even going to say it here because I'm not even sure what YouTube is going to pop up now and say what we can and cannot say, even talking out of the Bible. I know that I've been censored at church because I quoted section 88, section 77 through 81, and we went in and talked a little bit about that and encouraging people to get a better knowledge so that they can go out and help ease the fears that other less active people have and help them come back to our Savior Jesus Christ. That stuff we've been able to do for years, but even in my ward, there's a censoring. In my ward, I feel what I can say and not say, and that's not just in my ward. This is a church-wide issue for the most part. Now, some areas may have bishops that you're on page, and the bishop allows that agency of speech and just puts a guidelines of what the prophet said, that we don't discuss political parties at church, right? But the fact of discussing what type of political entities are supported by Satan and not, boy, that's a subject that really needs to be sat down and reviewed. Is that something we should discuss at church or not discuss at church? Because one, if we support it, then how do we go in for our temp recommend interview and say that we don't support any entity organization that stands against any of the doctrines or principles of the church, right? So we don't study that. How do you know that? How do you know what you're supporting? You better know what you're supporting or what you're voting for, because these are the consequences. So this new law could very well down the road be one that bans the Bible. Now, I'm not saying that's the case now, but Matt Gaetz has warned of this, and Matt Gaetz is a pretty, he's a pretty down-to-earth, go after, do the right thing type of guy. I respect that in Matt Gaetz. I wish all of our congressmen and congresswomen were like Matt Gaetz, as well as Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. Now, you might like them because they get bad publicity because they're standing up against the deep state. Let's continue, Walter, with the video, please.
They made the native population pay for it too. Everyone who has eyes can see it. The native, white, Christian European population is being replaced at an ever-accelerating rate. Let me back this up for you with some statistics from my home country. Let's take Amsterdam, the capital. Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion, the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. But let's look onwards. London, 54% migrants. Again, conclusion, native population outnumbered. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion, native population majorly outnumbered. And other Europeans will, of course, follow suit soon if they haven't already. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory. It's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent.
I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.